Hey everyone, I'm going to show you today how to take your Ionic 4 project and convert it into a progressive web app. Oh, and hey, I'd like to mention this video's sponsor, Skillshare.com. Now, it's a brand new year here in 2019, and Skillshare will help keep you learning and thriving as they offer 25,000 different classes in coding, design, business, and more. For instance, after watching this PWA tutorial, you can watch loads of other web development courses at Skillshare. Skillshare is also super affordable with a subscription that only costs $10 a month, but if you're one of the first 500 of my subscribers to click the link below here in the description, you get the first 2 months free, so take advantage. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of Coursetro. So today we're going to take the project that we created from the Ionic 4 crash course, which I just released last week, and it's 100% free on my channel. I'll link it here in the description on YouTube, and we're going to make it into a PWA or a progressive web app. Why? Well, because a lot of people want to know how to do this, and also because for this app that we created, which is the workout rest timer, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, just check it out. I'm also going to put an actual live link to the PWA itself in the description so you can check it out. It makes total sense to make that into something that's a PWA that people can very easily install on their phones very quickly without having to go to an app store. So there's multiple ways to create a PWA in Ionic 4 using their PWA kit. We're going to use a different route because our project was using Angular, so we're going to use the Angular PWA package, and I'm going to run you through all of it very easily. All right, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get started. All right, so the first thing you need to do, you could either start a brand new Ionic 4 project from scratch with the Ionic CLI. That's what we did in the previous, the crash course I did from last week. And I'm just going to use that project. So if you want to use that project too, because there's already a project that I created as a part of that, so we can actually have an app for this PWA, you can look in the description here in YouTube and click on the GitHub, and you can clone that GitHub repo, and you can start right here with the same exact project. You don't have to, but so even if you already have an existing Ionic 4 project, you can still just follow along the same way. So what we'll do now is we have to add the Angular PWA right here through ng add Angular PWA project, and we're going to set it to app. And that's a default value unless you change the project settings to the name to be something other than app. But this will work for me just fine, and probably the vast majority of other people. So I'm going to let this run through, and then I will speed it up. All right, and it finished. And also, by the way, you could do the same exact thing. Let's just say, for instance, you had strictly an Angular app that wasn't a part of Ionic. You could do the same exact thing that we're doing now. So adding this Angular PWA package obviously is not specific to just Ionic. So now what we can do is we want to hop into our code editor, and you can see it created a bunch of different assets and it updated several different files. So here it is. I need to update my Visual Studio Code here. Let's increase this just a bit. All right, so the main area that we want to take a look at is inside of our source folder right here. And inside of here, we want to go to, let me make sure everything's refreshed here, our manifest.web manifest file right here. So this is important to update it here because even though we already worked within this project to create, our simple app, you need to update the name, the short name, the theme color and background color, and all this stuff because it's just standard. If you were to try to deploy this PWA without modifying this, then the icon that I created for the app and all that stuff would not show up on the users where all their other icons are and such. So I'm just going to change the name and the short name to Rester, which is our workout rest app that we created. The theme color, I'm just going to use the purple kind of color that I was using for most of the app. So that's that color code. The background, I'm just going to set to black. So if we go to, real quickly, let me collapse some of this stuff. I have stuff all over the place. So if we look at, for instance, our resources, and you go in the Android and the icon folder. This is the custom icon that I created. And basically, we need to make this so that we use these in place of the other icons that will be generated. So if we go to source and we look in assets and icons, we'll see these icons. So we need to replace the one that we want to use, to replace this with the one that we want to use essentially. And you don't have to use all of these sizes. So there's a tool that I found that will make your life a little bit easier in creating and generating sizes for you. And I'll just show you that real quickly. And that is at pwabuilder.com/image generator. All right, so you could choose a file like a 512 by 512 icon, and that would be this one or the highest resolution one. And you can choose to add padding or whatever, and then hit download. And it may not work at first because it'll show there's a pop-up that's blocked, but I already did it. I already allowed it, and you might have to do it twice. But when you open up the zip file, just go to Android, and you'll see all these here with their names, so you know which files are which. And just go through and replace these. You keep the same name here, by the way. Replace these with the ones that we just downloaded. So I did that before, so I'm just gonna just delete all of these. All right, and then I'm going to move them from the folder that I already had created on the different project that I had for testing this tutorial. All right, so if I view, here they are. So I just have the 72 by 72 version, 96 by 96, 144, 192, and 512. So we have like 3 fewer than what we had before. So for instance, I didn't have let's say we have a 72 by 72. We have a 96 by 96. I didn't have a 128 version, just a 144. I also didn't have a 152 or a 384. And that's completely fine too, by the way. So once you've updated this section right here, you're good to go for just this manifest file. Another thing that we need to modify, we need to go to our app routing. So if I go to source app and app routing module.ts file, you can see there's a redirect here so that when the app loads in the browser, it's redirecting to /home. And we don't want that because I want to be able to audit this easily. So what I'll do is simply remove this object and then change the path here just to the default home position. So go ahead and save that. At that point, we can go ahead and run, and we could just go in our terminal here. We go to View in Terminal. We could just run Ionic build for production. And we've seen an empty www folder that we had before. It is going to repopulate this with our app. All right, so it's built it out, and we can see if we go to our www folder here, we have a bunch of stuff. If we cd into www and type in http-server, and by the way, this is an npm package, so if you don't have http server installed, type in npm I for install, HTTP server-G for global. After that, you can now run HTTP server-O for open, and it will show our app. All right, very exciting stuff. So now, if we hit Control-Shift-I and we go over to network and we choose offline and refresh, we'll see it works. And we know it works because now if it weren't a PWA, this would not work at all. So it works in offline mode, which is one of the many benefits of having a progressive web app. All right, so now what we can do is we want to deploy this somehow. So one way to do that is through Firebase, and it's made very easy. If you hit Control-C here, it's made very easy by the Firebase CLI tools, essentially. So we're going to install that. what we'll do is, let me hit Control B, get rid of the sidebar for a second, is if you don't have it installed yet, run npm I for install -g for global Firebase -tools. All right, I already have it installed, so I don't need to do that. All right, and you can also run at this point Firebase init in the current project folder to set up, and it's going to give you a bunch of prompts or a bunch of questions essentially through the CLI right here about the specifics of your project. I'm not going to do that, but what it ends up doing is generating a single file for you called firebase.json, which is a configuration file for deploying your app to Firebase. All right, so I found that I just have a Firebase JSON file that already works for me. So you can experiment with the CLI version if you want. So in your project folder in the root here, Control B to get this back. Just going to click down on a random file here. I'm going to create a new one, firebase.json, and then I'm going to paste in this information right here. All right, so it's just saying, so if you go to, by the way, type in firebase.json configuration details or documentation in Google, you'll find what all of this stuff essentially means. I'm not going to go over it. But you know, it's pretty basic. You only have to do this once really for your project. So you'll want to save that afterwards, and then we'll also create a Firebase project. Again, this is one of the things that the CLI is able to do, but I just choose to do it here manually. You'll want to go to firebase.google.com and then click Go to Console. If you don't already have an account, you're gonna have to set that up. I already have the account here, so I'm gonna click Add Project, and I'm just gonna call this what's it called? Rester. There we go. All right, so this is the project ID. We're going to want that ID, by the way. And we'll accept all this stuff. And just hit Create Project. All right, we'll hit Continue. And there we go. Don't have to really worry about this anymore. All right, so now what we can do is we're going to run Firebase Deploy, but I don't think it's going to work. It's going to give us, it's going to make us specify which project. All right, so it says, like I mentioned, it says no project active. So you want to run Firebase Deploy with project and then the project ID. Oh, and by the way, before you can run deploy, it's going to ask you to log in with your account. So make sure you do that first. And then let's go ahead and see if this works. So it says deploying hosting, beginning hosting. And it says it's deploying hosting, by the way, because it found this information right here. And here we go. So I'm just going to Control left click it. And there's our app. And it's now served on HTTPS, which PWAs absolutely have to be secured or hosted and presented securely in order for them to even work on people's phones and such. All right, so now if we, for instance, go to our audit tab, and you'll have to install Lighthouse Chrome extension for this. There's other ways to check the PWA performance, but for audits, we just want to check Progressive Web App, and let's hit Run Audits. And it should give us 100%. And there we go. 100%. Very awesome stuff. Okay, so now at this point, you can give people this URL. It's live. You can tell them to visit on their phone, and it will present them with the little add to home screen. If you had a serious project, you would want to get your own .com and redirect it here for just typeability. But for me, I'm just going to show it now on my phone, running it for the very first time, so you can see that it is indeed a PWA, and people can click Add to Home on their phone. Okay, so I have the Google Chrome browser up here on my phone, and I have the deployment URL to the live Firebase app that we just deployed to. And I'm going to visit it for the very first time on my phone, hit go. All right, so it says add rester to home screen right there at the bottom. So that's the PWA part of this. By the way, you saw when it was loading, I had a different version loaded. That was when I was testing on the test project. But if I hit add rester to home screen, it says add to home screen. Yes, I do. All right, so it's adding it. And now I should be able to go to my right here. So you can see there's two of them. It says rester at the top and then rester right here. This is the Ionic, the hybrid version of the app for Android. So if I click that, let me click out of things real quickly. So again, if I click on this, you'll see we have the loading screen here from Ionic, which showed up just for a second or two. You can also see at the bottom, we don't have the normal home and back button bar, which is something that I removed. But if we go back to this one, all right, we see how we have a different loading screen. That's because it's a PWA. We also do have this bar here because the Cordova plugin for removing that doesn't quite work on this. But nonetheless, here it is. All right, so hopefully you found that useful, and now you're going to be busting out PWAs left and right. Okay, make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, and click the bell notification icon. Make sure you idle in my Discord server. Check it out in the description here, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.